Here we go again. It's the Lean Into Artcast, the show where two visual storytellers get together and engage with various topics that kind of pop up in and around visual storytelling, what it takes, like coming up with ideas for things, designing things, developing things, executing on the designs, and then the lifestyle stuff, all the stuff that goes into building one's life around communicating visually. We think really hard about this stuff, so you will too. My name is Jerzy Drozd. I am a cartoonist and a teaching artist. The other host is...
Hey, I am Rob Stenzinger, a user experience and game designer.
Good to see you again, Rob. Another week, another Thursday night.
Right on. Good to see you also, Jerzy.
If I may do something different at the top of this one. What are you working on right now?
What am I working on right now?
What are you working on right now?
Well, a variety of things. I mean, one of them, it totally led to our topic, right? And if that's what you're leading at.
Could be, but I was also leaving room for anything else that you wanted to bring up that you've been working with.
I have, one of the things is a project that's almost totally ready to go table and share with the audience at A2 CAF, which is a comic I made called Two Pizza Team, in a situation called No Trash Talk. And I'll be darned if that thing I don't need to redo one more time. So It's not the end of it's not as giant of whatever. It's just that a little, I let something like some registration and layout marks make it into a couple of the pages.
Oh, I see.
And it's just gnawing at me. So that's one of the I'm going to take care of that this weekend and get that reprinted. And not a giant thing, but I've got 40 of those little things stapled over there going like, we're not good enough.
Giveaways, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I keep a drawer full of not poorly printed, but misprinted mini comics that it's just off enough that I wouldn't feel good about asking for $3 for it, right? And those go in a drawer when I do school visits.
What do you do with them then? Okay.
Like if I do school visits or if I'm teaching a class, anytime that I carry some in my bag, just to do as a business card type deal, right?
Okay.
So there's just always a few on my person for whatever reason, right?
Huh.
Even if I'm going for a walk and I see there's one of those little public library boxes out on the street, right? I might go slip a mini comic in one of those.
Oh, that's a great idea. Okay. Huh.
I don't know.
I knew life for those. Okay.
This is totally like a sidebar type of deal, but and I don't want to sound too much prepare for the end times, but you should always have some comics on you for whatever eventuality. Like the comics that
okay,
not like MacGyver stuff. Not like you never know when you need to fix a car and a comic will come in handy. But
sure. Hold on, I have to armor up my jacket. I'm gonna stuff it with the comics. Good thing I carried these comics.
Good thing I carry my screen printed ceramic covered comics so I could put them over my heart. No, but you never know when you're going to run into somebody and they'll come up with oh, you make comics? Yeah, I do. Well, tell me about them. Oh, well, it'd be a lot easier just to give you one, right? So.
Yeah, okay. That's great. Actually, I love that. And I'm theoretically, I'm more prepared for all sorts of disaster, maybe. That's nice.
When Red Dawn happens, look, I got a good reason why you shouldn't line me up with the others. Comics.
Sure. Help you solve negotiations, tense situations. You're like, all right, everybody, just let's take a break. Read a comic.
Let's take a break. Read about pizzas fighting each other.
Yeah. All
right. But you are also working on something else related to A2 CAF.
Certainly. We've mentioned that a few times of late, which is the this workshop that it's about talking about branching narrative and specifically using this free app called Twine. And that's it's one of those fun hands-on things that I like to facilitate where people just get to jump in and get maybe a couple layers of practice in exploring this tool. Like some workshops I've done like this are creating an ebook style webcomic. That was a few years back, and that was around I a little thing I like a plugin I made for Reveal.js, which is like a way to do some nice presenting things with web tech. Instead of making like a PowerPoint, you can do other stuff with it just with simple HTML. And I just made an add-on for that makes it work for comics, and did a workshop around it. So again, hands-on and explore. This is in a similar vein. Also in just doing a couple of little mini creative challenge exercises, and it's still work in progress, right? So I thought it'd be fun to share where I'm at with it, some parts, and get the feedback and reactions that can happen with folks in the chat. And of course we are tweeting later is great too, but then definitely dumping that in your lap, Jerzy, as well.
Okay. So this will be the part where I go, I don't get it.
Perfect. And I'll say, all right, well, let's take a look at this from a different angle.
All right, so do you want to hit the music then and get into the first part?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, first half of the show.
Let's take a look at some examples.
There we go. That music signifies that we're in a different section of the show now. This is where we're on the ground. We're actually going to look at what this thing looks like. What does it look like when we're engaging with the thing? And then we can talk about some of the ideas behind the thing, right?
Yeah. So, all right. I might need to do a little screen sharing here in a minute. Well, I think, what if we just started with looking at one of the examples I'm working on, and maybe we'll dig at a few of those in this section.
Okay.
So I will share my screen. Doodly do. Screen share and desktop 1. Here we go. So we should. So we're looking at sort of the main place you land when you launch the Twine app. This is similar to, like, you can go to the twinery.org and essentially the full experience is available in your web browser. I don't know. I like writing it as its own separate app, but anyway, this is what it looks like when you launch it. I happen to be using the Mac version, but I think it's wrapped for multiple operating systems.
There's Mac OS, Windows 32-bit, and Linux 32-bit.
Very nice. Very, as you often run into with open source tools, they have this wide reach. So let's see. What if we started with let's see. I'll open a really simple example. For some reason, I just felt like opening this one. And these are almost like improv silly stories. That's what I'm playing with here. So I'm going to hit the play button and see what you choose. So the adventure is up to you, Jerzy, to navigate.
You're telling me I have the power. This is exciting. Okay.
So you wake up with a tummy ache. And there's a link. Think about what I did to get here.
Okay. So I click it. It's a bit fuzzy. All you recall is a buffet of ice creams. You also recall at least 4 empty bowls near you. I click the link. Move forward. So that's what happened. Is that all? Wait a minute. You're giving me a choice now?
I'm giving you a choice.
Well, naturally, I'm going to be more curious. Is that really all? I definitive answers don't make me feel good. That's all. You must rest. Heal up for the next feast. I sleep all day except for one little snack later. Okay. Uh-oh. I woke up with a tummy ache. Think about what I did to get here. Here we go again. Oh, when will I ever learn self-control? It's a bit fuzzy. All you recall is a buffet of ice creams. You also recall at least 4 empty bowls near you. So that's what happened. Or is that all? Well, let's try. So that's what happened. Not entirely. You also recall 5 empty pickle jars. Right then. It was delightful at the time, but now your tummy is mad. I'll behave next time. What happens tomorrow? You wake up with a tummy ache.
This one's just silly loop.
So it's silly futility is what it is.
Yeah.
Clearly, I'm never going to improve myself as a human being, and I'm going to keep going on these benders of bad food eating.
Possibly. Let's take a look at another example. All right, going to click that home button there. That brings me back to my list of stories. And let's go with it's almost so I've got a knock knock joke that's similar, but it has multiple endings. So you want to do that one, or do you want to do it? Okay, let's go for it. So I'll hit start there. When I say knock knock, you say who's there. Ready? Knock knock.
Who's there? Oh, or I could say, actually, I'm not that into this joke format. Let's try that one.
All right.
I found you at last. You're the professor. Your professor actually knock knock jokes. Is it up for a silly time? Professor actually knock knock jokes isn't up for a silly time. We could have had fun.
So then that's not funny is a reply, and then
okay. All right. So you want to try again? I can give it a try. You can. That's great news. I'll start over. And then the link is very well. Let's try again.
All right.
All right. So when I say knock knock, you say who's there. Ready? Sure. Knock knock. Who's there? Bowling ball. Bowling ball? Bowling ball who? Bowling ball is a big gala and you're totally underdressed. Nice one or eye roll? Let's try eye roll. Oh, we're back to this. We could have had fun. We still could have fun. You want to try again? I can give it a try.
You can give You want to find that ending? Okay.
I was one of those kids. All right, very well. Let's try again. And knock, knock. Who's there? I'll say who's there.
Uh-huh.
Bowling ball. Bowling ball. Bowling ball. Who? Bowling ball is a big gala and you're totally underdressed. Nice one. Click. Thanks for laughing with me. Have a great day. See, that feels better.
Satisfying ending. Yeah.
People in the chat are asking, can you use this for mind mapping? And then somebody else is shadowing asks, what's mind mapping? Do we need to touch on that real quick?
Yeah, of course. That's a fantastic question. Let's see. I mean, it's really natural, I think, if you've seen a mind map and how you can have a series of concepts linked to in sort of a hierarchical structure that it could flow from top down, from left to right, or from middle outward. And you get these clusters of like, you have a major, this is actually how I do like when I draft show notes for Lean Into Art, or when I actually do lots of different types of documentation, documents. Let's see here. I'm going to, let's see, I'll open a mind map to answer the question. So here I just launched the app called iThoughts, and it has a couple of different formats built into it based on your preferences. I tend to like the one where it's it flows left to right, and then has like big emphasis that gets smaller as you go, at least to a certain extent. And then I'll actually use an app called Marked 2 to preview it. So it's kind of like a little writing workflow for me. And anyway, like, so what you do when you mind map, it's like you could, it depends on the reason why you're mind mapping. Some people, like, this is how they do project management, or, I mean, it's a really flexible format. But typically for like, you're getting ideas out of your head, and in a way that lets you, let's see, like I come up with like, why do I use this format? I come up with like general things that start to break stuff down. Then you can break down those general things into more detailed things, right? So it's like for Lean Into Art, it'll be like, well, what's the general on the ground thing that I think makes sense for this? And then what are some big questions around that? And so each of those becomes a layer in this map. But you can use this as far as just organizing ideas in a user interface and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's a flexible tool. but a mind map tool, like I can go like this. I can be like, yep, I'm totally moving this around, right? And say like these, this idea actually belongs here, and this idea belongs here. I just promoted it and that kind of thing. It's so modular and flexible, where this is, even though it looks like it has that modularity and flexibility, it's
You're looking at Twine now.
I'm yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jerzy. I switched back to Twine. It's kind of hard coded as far as how the links work, right? That so it's just more, it's more explicit. You can make Twine stories that have these, like little islands of branching stuff that aren't linked in the UI, but like link in the code through clever ways where this view wouldn't actually show you like how you got from one to another, but yeah, you still could when you run the game.
So for the folks who are listening in audio, what we're looking at is a bunch of boxes with the little interactions that we were reading earlier, like the knock knock. When I say knock knock, you say who's there. Ready? That's like one box, and then there's branching arrows coming out of it, pointing to options that we would go to when we click the different links within. Is that an accurate representation?
Totally accurate. Thank you for unboxing that for the listeners. This is yeah, and so those links appear because they were expressed in code that the Twine engine understands. Like, oh, you made a link. Okay, that link will need they're called passages in Twine. So I need to link this passage to the next passage that you just told me is a link, which is a little bit like kind of like how a wiki can work. Where like if you're ever on Wikipedia and then there's like one of those red hyperlinks instead of a blue one, that's typically that someone wants to put a linking concept in there, but it's a placeholder. It's a little bit like when you create a link in a passage and then it'll just point to an empty next passage in Twine, but not the same kind of functionality as a mind map. But
okay, so it does bear some visual similarities in that it's got this metaphor where you're looking at like what look like what shadowing Troy was saying earlier, post-it notes sort of arranged and with arrows pointing between the different segments or passages of story.
Right on. So let's see. So we took a look at yeah, I guess let's open up and dig around a little bit more into this example. So we start at the beginning and we have, knock, knock, this name at the top of all right. So we're looking at the, a passage edit mode. And all you do to get there is you double click on a passage in that map view. And, here we go. I can add more text. I can say, 3, 2, 1. All right. And then I get out of that and I can hit play, which will launch it in the preview mode where it's live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then here we go. I can interact with the passage. So yeah, editing it. Then we go, okay, who's there is that's a link. And actually I'm not that into this joke format. That's another link. We could add a third one. Let's see. You feel free to improv in here and I will make a link, but.
Oh, okay. Like adding an option of where to go with it.
Let's see. Right. So then I made a
yeah. Now you wrote as another link. I'm super into this format. Please tell me my motivation first.
All right. So then we X out of here and then look at this. That became another.
It automatically generates another passage for you to edit and put content into.
Yep. So if I go into it.
Now, how did you make a link? What did you do to make a link? I saw you using different characters, but it was kind of hard to see on the screen.
All right. So yeah, I suppose maybe this isn't, there's no great zoom mode here. Because technically the Twine app is what I don't know if it's an Electron app that lets you wrap a web page and make it run like an app on a desktop, but like it doesn't have the shortcuts that you can use in a web browser to zoom in and out, what have you. So sorry about the zoom level here. But what I did is I did square brackets. Okay, so you have those you have the squiggle bracket, which you've lots of code will use that to group a function or what have you. And then like the square bracket is often used to like address items in a list if it's Python, or an array if it's JavaScript, right? But here we just do double open and double close, and then you put any text you want in here.
And it automatically turns it into a link.
Yep. Are you interested in buying my book about knock knocks? And then that verbose reply becomes, let's see, so there's the I'm super into, and there, boop, there it is.
And so it creates another essentially post-it note, and it automatically creates an arrow running from the first passage to this one.
Exactly.
And when you double click on it, it takes you to a blank. When you double click on the new passage created, it takes you to a blank field for you to enter new content into it.
Yeah, this seems like a recursive joke bit. Who's joking who? And I could say, let's start over, but I have to remember the, all right, knock, knock, start. Okay. Then if I do this, if I say, let's start over, and I don't want it to link to let's start over, I can put in a little arrow and type knock, knock, start.
Oh, and it autofills based on what passages you've already created.
Yep. So now if we go back here, we hit play to preview it. Wow, we got a lot of stuff going on. So, hi, there we go. Wait, this seems like a recursive joke bit. Who's joking whom? Let's start over. Links back to the beginning.
Gotcha.
So not too many pieces and parts to learn there. And all of a sudden you can do, there you go. You have branching narrative, a fairly approachable tool to compose and play around with. Yep. So what are you thinking here, Jerzy? What you've seen?
Well,
so far?
Okay, this seems very direct, right? Okay, it's either or. Choose your own adventure. Go this way or go that way, and there's consequence to that. Are there any instances? I'm seeing the word variable on screen when you put it into presentation mode. It's 0 variables.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
All right, let's start exploring the more complicated stuff. How about this example? You ever hear of a game called Hunt the Wumpus?
No.
No?
No. If I have, it's gone from my brain, filled in with other detritus. But what's Hunt the Wumpus?
So Hunt the Wumpus. I think it has a longer history than I was aware of when I researched it before the show. It's I first encountered it on a TI 99.4A Texas Instruments home computer. That it's was a cartridge based game, had color graphics, kind of I think at the time it was a high res mode, but like pretty low res compared to today's standards. And the gist of it is you're a character in a maze of nodes where you can encounter stuff in the nodes. You might encounter and you can kind of encounter different things. You can encounter like a pit or like an impish bat. If you encounter the bat will throw you somewhere random in the maze. If you encounter a pit, I believe that might be one of the game over possibilities. And then for sure, if you encounter the Wumpus monster, then that's it, chomp. There's a big animation on the screen that showed these thick white teeth collapsing in on you, and it looks a little bit like if you recall the Oh, what was that snow creature in Empire Strikes Back that
The
had
Wampa.
the Wampa? There you go. I mean, similar name, right? But I think the Wumpus was invented, years before the Wampa. But I'm not sure. Which came first, the Wumpus or the Wampa?
I'm watching gameplay now. I've got it up on screen and
Okay.
watching this guy go around and like explore these little nodes. And he found the Wumpus.
Chomp. That's it. That could be what the end looks like. So this is not a graphical version of that game, but it's like a text version of that game. And I saw someone do a shout out in the chat for Zork. There you go. Nate Marcel mentioned Zork. And this is very Zorkish, right? Where it's not a text-based UI, you're getting, clickable options. But technically, if you're looking for that kind of challenge, you could add. I mean, this is a scriptable, programmable environment that you could probably add like a Zork like insert text commands UI on top of Twine. But yeah, anyway, so like you got the gist of the idea, right? So to beat the Wumpus, you need to essentially it's like the game of Clue at the end, where if you have a good hunch where the Wumpus is because you found the blood trail, right? Those red dots that you were in your the video you shared. You're like that's it. Like if you encounter like a couple of red dots in a row, you have a decent hunch where the Wumpus is. And if you're feeling confident enough, then you shoot your arrow, right? If you miss, you die, right?
I see.
But if you hit, you win. Anyway, so in the spirit of that, I've got this example, right? Hunt the Wumpus. And notice that it's not that many passages.
We're looking at five post-it notes.
But like let's jump in and you go ahead and be the hunter.
I'll be the narrator too.
Or go ahead and narrate. Yeah.
All right. You awaken in a cave with exits to the south and east. You're not sure how you got here other than you remember setting out to hunt the Wumpus creature. Moments pass, and you hear a guttural roar from what you can only assume is the Wumpus. You are carrying a bow and one arrow. You have two choices. Go east or go south. Let's go south. You enter a very messy room. It's food messy? And then, while I was reading, the word roar, it grew on screen. And then there's a link that says, think fast. I'll hit it. Crunch. Oh, you're very close to the Wumpus. Maybe far too close to get away. What do? Run to the north or run to northeast? Run northeast. A safe and quiet room for now.
And that's an end. I have to extend the example from there. And then the UI in Lotus has these back arrows that
oh
yeah.
All right, so want to try it where I go east?
Sure.
Initially? Okay. There's stuff strewn about. It's piled up to the ceiling. Explore the stuff or look closely. Let's explore the stuff. There's stuff strewn about. It's piled up to the ceiling. A bunch of stuff tumbles down around you. Look closely at all this stuff that fell around you. Now you notice a handle sticking out of the stuff and also a book. Let's pick up the book. It had a Wumpus in it. No, it didn't. You find a book called Signs of the Wumpus. Read the book called Sign of the Wumpus. An honest, thorough, unsettling guide. The book gives you many reasons to want to avoid the Wumpus avoid Wumpuses at all costs. Now I'm noticing that the one variable is showing at the bottom right-hand corner of each screen.
Yep. So yeah, we can toggle. This is sort of a debug view, right? It's not quite the view that a reader would get of the story when you export it out, where you can sort of go back and forth in your own history here. And then of course there is the undo arrows as well. But there's a lot going on. Like notice how this page transforms a lot. So like I click on a link, then the link disappears, but we're still on the same page. Click on this link, that link disappears. We're still on the same page. And then, right. So there's ways. So like if we try the handle that was in the pile of stuff, then it opens a door to the east. Right. And then, yeah, so it's there is dynamism beyond the granularity of, oh, go to a passage. It's, you know, it's not just go to a passage. You can reveal text in various ways. Let's see. So if we go to the first room, it's just it's similar to the prior example where we just have basic links. But if we go to room 1.2, and this is where I was thinking, I was like, maybe it's kind of like a grid, right? Where there's potentially a maze of rooms that I might think of, like, and this was just me experimenting as I was writing it, right? Where instead of naming the room based on the topic or situation, I named it like as a position. Like, think of it as row 1, column 2, right? So in a way, like if the start is in room 1.1, then there's 1.2 and 1.3 was kind of like what I was thinking. And then room 2.1. So then this is actually the actual layout of the maze. But then
neat. Yeah. So you can arrange your post-it notes like a Dungeons and Dragons map. Like it provides you with an extra visual way of thinking about how this game is being played.
Yeah, and instead of it being like, oh, this is a node in the narrative, it's like, no, this is a physical room. Which, you know, also happens to be a node in the narrative. So,
well, that's nice. I mean, for people who think like how I think, this makes a lot of sense. It would help me build the maze, because otherwise I'd be working on a separate sheet of paper.
Right. To make sense of it all.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see. So there's so variables. I had a version of this that dealt with variables. I'm trying to think which room did I keep variables in. Here it is. Yeah, so I had there's a few different concepts that get introduced in this one. So I have the variable taking action, and then I use it's called a hold on a second. I gotta remember what these so you have hooks in Twine, and a hook is like anything in square brackets. It's like I want to organize some chunk of behavior or story, and it's going to be inside of a square bracket, and then I can do different stuff to it. So here I have it becomes a named hook, and I do this little arrow. Think of it as, so this I named this named hook think, right? And all this is a label for the hook, right? So the first part's a label, second part's the hook. And then now I can, because it's got this label, I can, I was able to make a clickable behavior to that text, right? So I can say, think fast now. I can change that all day long, and that's not going to break this link, right?
That's just the content of the link.
Yep. And then inside the click is, so click is a macro, right? So that's where in these parentheses, right? So you have like these are like proper nouns inside the world of Twine, right? So you've got a passage, you've got, and that's this whole chunk here. You've got just your text and stuff, but then you've got macros, like you see how it starts with parentheses and then close parentheses, and then you're doing stuff inside of it. So that's the set macro. That's how I'm setting the variable taking action to false. But then I've got a live macro. That's where all of a sudden this text started to appear on the screen. You didn't have to do anything, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why that taking action variable is there, because until you do something, this is going to every 2 seconds, right? So it's got the live macro that every 2 seconds is going to do this little if thing here. So if taking action, stop. So that's what breaks us out of this live thing. If taking action isn't set to true, then keep doing this. And it's doing, now we have a couple of macros here. There's the if macro, which that if that's not true, then it goes to the else macro. And then and then runs whatever's inside of the else macro, which, again, is inside of a hook. So you can see how like macros can have hooks attached that do stuff inside, right? And so and then it's nestable. So inside this, inside the hook in the else macro is an either macro, right? So either is just going to pick this or pick any three of any of these three and spit it out to the screen, right? And in this position in the
roar,
passage.
a crunch, and a bigger roar listed as they're in parentheses, or not in parentheses, they're in quotations to identify them as individual pieces of content that can be randomly displayed as a result of the either macro, the either command.
It's a macro. Yeah, you had it. So there you go. So while that's going on, then and if you do nothing, it'll keep doing this every 2 seconds. It'll display one of these things.
Gotcha.
In this position in the passage, right? So we move this text somewhere else. It's going to do it elsewhere in the passage. It would display at the bottom if we wanted, or the top, or wherever. Then
this goes back to the Commodore 64 days, where the hierarchy is what's at the top is what's played first, and it slowly runs down through the code.
Yep. So now check this out. So this is how this so if we have the click macro that is referring to the think named hook, right? Because so think is the name for this hook, and if you refer to a hook, you use the question mark before that label, right? If you refer to a variable, you use the $sign.
Okay.
So little things that you get used to in the world of Twine. And
Twine's doing that nice thing that a lot of these WYSIWYG editors, well, this isn't WYSIWYG, but it's like a lot of editors do this thing where they color code the different pieces as well. So like when you did a link to a label, it automatically made it green. Whereas when you link to a macro, it's blue.
Yep, the variable is blue. Yep,
variables are blue.
And the macro is like purple.
Yeah.
So now check this out. So the click macro in front of a big old hook, right? So the square bracket is this hook attached to the click macro. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff inside of here. Once this is activated, all of a sudden, now the first thing we do is we set the variable taking action to true, right?
Right, which stops the roaring and crunching and roaring.
Exactly. And then it displays this text, right? And then have the options that appear that are links, just plain old links that we're used to, where it's the display text of the link and then the target of the link that you attach to via the little arrow, which the arrow is made up of a dash and then an angle bracket, right? Which in text looks a lot like an arrow. So there you go. Lots of little things happening in these few passages.
Yeah, it sure felt larger than 5 post-it notes of content.
Yep. Ooh.
Now, can you not long ago we did a rebroadcast of visual novels with Casey Van Heis. That episode 121. We rebroadcast that a few weeks ago. And in that, she used examples like Hatofel Boyfriend and Hustle Cat as showing using this kind of branching narrative, but with images in addition to it. This is a visual storytelling show, so I have to ask, is there a way to embed images within these passages?
Yeah, there is. So let me see. Let me see if I can easily embed an image. Dooley Doo. I've got a few examples. Astronaut, kitty. How do I get there we go. I can do skeleton. Let me see if I get this link right, but you essentially use the HTML image tag.
Oh, really?
Yep. So here's the puzzle. So it's a web-based in browser, not just web, but it's a browser-based app that all the content you work on in Twine is saved in your web browser. If you go to another web browser, you don't get to just magically reload it from the cloud. It's all locally stored in that given web browser you used it in. If you're running it in its standalone app, it's super easy to just save and export your stories, right?
Okay.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. What was your question that led me to? Oh yeah, right. So yeah, sorry about the images, right? So how do you get images to display in this situation? Because it's not like it doesn't currently let you import images to store as raw data in HTML, because that is possible, right? So it's called it's called base 64 encoding of binary data, right? So what that does is an image is binary data. It exists as like, bits on your hard drive. It's not text. You can encode that as text. And once it's text, it can sit inside of a web page. And so you can have like an image tag that would, so it would go, image source equals, and then data colon, and then a bunch of garbly junk, right? And it's a lot. Because think about like that whole image that exists as whatever, 5K, 50K, whatever on your hard drive is now turned into text. And so it's a lot of text, but totally embeddable inside a web page. So it doesn't ever have to ask for an external resource. Sorry, you asked.
Oh my gosh, I just did that with. I just made a text file out of an image. Oh man, that's a lot of characters.
It is.
Oh my gosh, it's thousands and thousands of characters. Let me do it on. I'll do it on another screen so people can see it while you keep describing what you're describing.
All right. Let's see. I'm gonna try to do a quick text. Nope, I don't want to. Let me see if doodly do. No, I didn't want that. I wanted a quick. All right, so it's going to take me a second to assemble this full path. So it's users Rob Dropbox. Users Dropbox. Almost there with you.
While you do that, I'll pull up on screen. I just went to base64encode.org, and I got my text file. Let's see if we can view it. Possibly. So this is the title card for the Lean Into Artcast I just uploaded to this. And there is the code that results. Or the text that results.
Yeah, quite a bit of text, right?
Yeah.
But then again,
keeps going.
So technically, you could have a web page that contains everything, it needs. It doesn't need to request anything else from the outside world. That's a bit of a it's all that's to say that Twine does not support doing that for you, right?
Okay.
It seems like it might happen in the future from something I read, but like who knows, right? It's an open source project, and it's any feature can take a lot of time to implement. All right, there we go. So I've got a valid image source, and then
Shadow, we can say we could also use ASCII art.
Totally, yep. And you can use CSS and stuff too. So let me think. I'm just going to put this in the starting passage. Boop, doop, 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 doop. Here we go. Image. Close that. Test it. Let's see. It may expect a hard-coded width and height. So that did not work. Why did that not work? So this is fully qualified from the root of my hard drive, right? So that path. Let's see. So it's possible No, I'm not sure why that didn't work. But the idea is you probably, in order to refer to images from within Twine, they'll either need to already exist on a website where you host the image. So I suppose I could switch this up for example. If I go to lean art, I like the challenge of making this one work. So if I'm just gonna get the path of this image, and the banner. Where is that thing? Banner image, diddly do. Div ID logo, site title. Nope. Okay. Where is that image? All right, I think I found it. Okay, so let's try this. I'll paste this path, and this is an image hosted on the web. Maybe there is not conflict with that. So if I start, okay,
there we are.
There we go. That image hosted on the web was loaded fine. So
okay,
that could be a sandboxing thing, where web browsers have a lot of isolation of requesting of resources, and it's for our benefit and our safety overall. But like you run into little problems, right? With so anyway,
neat.
It's
so you could also use this to you could embed, build it.
Yeah. Images, audio, video. It's very flexible.
And okay, so then with the variables, could you then have the audio load, like, so instead of actually like showing text that says roar and crunching, it could play random MP3 files to create a sense of background drama?
You totally could. It's
you could make mist with this thing.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's there's a certain point where Twine isn't helping you as much as just providing a certain opinionated structure from which you could work within, right? Which might be good, if that works for you. But there's a certain point where you might want to learn a different game engine if it's really more multimedia and visual and stuff like that. That's
well. Yeah. I feel like we're coming up on like the teaser for the second half of the show where we talk about like, well, why this engine and what kinds of games is it good for?
Okay. That sounds good.
All right. Okay. Well, then if that sounds okay to you, Rob, are you ready to do an ad, or do you want to, anything else to say on this part?
No, let's roll. I mean, it's we spent a good chunk of the episode on this part. I feel like we'll hit some of the why questions, coming up next. But of course, after an important sponsor break.
An important break is we have to thank some people who make the show possible. We're gonna spend about 1 minute and 30 seconds on this for those of you who want to skip ahead. But I urge you to stick around, because we're going to mention some people that you might want to know, the people who make the show possible, who happen to be the folks who support us on Patreon. Yes, patreon.com/leanintoart is the website. What is it? It's a way to give us a monthly upvote. If you believe in us and the work that we do, if you like the way we think about things, you can pledge as little as $1 a month to say, hey, we want to support this thing, help make it sustainable. And we want to thank 5 people who've been doing exactly that. First up, Casey Snipes. You can find Casey on Twitter at letter K, letter C, Snipes. Thank you, Casey. And then Angela Mitchell. You can find Angela on Twitter at Angie Makes Stuff. Thank you, Angie, for believing in us and what we do. And then Jonathan Warrenson. We didn't have a Twitter handle for you, Jonathan. If you want to update your Patreon profile, we'll mention it next time you show up in our random selection of 5 Patreon supporters. Thank you, Jonathan. Mark Falk. Mark Falk you can find on Twitter at Radimir, Radimere. These will all be linked to the show notes, by the way. And finally, Dave Say, longtime friend of the show, has been on the show a whole bunch of times, one of our favorite people in the entire world. Thank you, Dave, for supporting the show. And you can join them at patreon.com/leanintoart, where you will find all the shows we create, as well as the extra leans, the shows we record only for Patreon supporters. And those posts become an open mic post where you can talk about whatever you want in a safe place where only fellow leaners can interact. Thank you to everybody who has been supporting us there, and thank you for considering supporting us at patreon.com/leanintoart. It means a lot to us.
Sure does. So yeah, why? There's maybe some music? that helps us get in the mood for exploring why.
Okay. How about that?
What?
This always works.
All right, time to think about why Twine. First of all, like we said, you're running this as a workshop at the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Festival this June 16th and 17th in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And free comics festival, by the way, everybody. Free to attend, and 50 artists there, all leading all sorts of programming. The programming actually just dropped on the website, so if you go to the programming link, let's go to it and see what we got. There's a lot of stuff, Rob. There's a lot of stuff happening this year, including
that's great.
Not only your workshop, but Brandon Dayton's leading his inking workshop. Lucy Bellwood's leading how to get rid of art block.
Wow, that's
Mark
awesome.
Siegel. Mark Siegel, editor at First Second, is leading a workshop on how to build a story that an editor wants. Jenny Robb from the Billy Ireland Cartoon Museum is coming to do some talks on, archiving stuff digitally, and also an overview of the largest comics collection in the United States, or in North America, if I'm not mistaken. Steve Hamaker is going to lead a workshop on professionally coloring comics. Hannah O'Neill is going to do a animating in Photoshop workshop. It just keeps going. There's a lot of stuff happening that weekend.
That's amazing. Like, seriously, that's a free event. And I mean, it's just mind-boggling. What a good event that is. And I'm not just saying that for, I mean, I can't wait to be, presenting the workshops I'll be doing and tabling and, enjoying that experience. But like, it's so mind-boggling. Like, if you're anywhere near that, where it's a reasonable commute and whatnot, that's a lot of bang for your attention buck, right?
Right. Let's focus on the one you're going to do. One of the two you're going to be leading over the weekend. Why Twine?
Let's see. It's like, I'd like to keep an eye on, like, what are some of the interesting, approachable game engine things, right? Because I've got a variety of ideas for games, and just playing with Twine a few different times in the past, it's like, it's something so good. I wish I'd built something like it, right? It's because years ago I was working on a game called Jinhanu, and me and the other main coder, we built an engine to help with essentially making a very comic style focused RPG experience, right? And there was a lot of these elements that, Twine is, like, to its credit, way more streamlined, way more focused, and so much easier to use, right? But I've built something that could do branching narrative, and I had a huge respect for, like, how easy Twine makes it, and it got me thinking about, like, well, what are some kind of things that I could do as maybe game jam games or prototypes. And so it just was like a tool that I'd noodle around with from time to time. And then the idea of doing having the opportunity to pitch a workshop, and then thinking of, like, well, what tools are sort of laying about that, like, maybe that I haven't seen a lot of folks talk about, and in, like, maybe a comic event or what have you. And I don't know, Twine just really stood out as, like, this is a really approachable thing. It's got some codey stuff that, like, if you want to get into programming, or you already are a programmer, you can dig deep. And honestly, like, there's a couple of levels there, right? You can dig into the well of, okay, Twine has a lot of affordances for structuring how the text behaves and flows in itself, but then honestly, you have the rest of web technology available to you as well. And also, there's even a way to embed a Twine story in Unity. So that's like, well, now you can reach tons of different platforms. You could theoretically make a Switch game based on, like, a Nintendo Switch game based on Twine, and with a bit of work in Unity as well. But that's really cool. So like sharing that is like, just seemed like a, instead of digging into some other, familiar territory, I was like, this really stands out and I'm excited. So there's a bit of the why.
And it's, I mean, this is the reason that I teach Metabang in my comics classes here in Ann Arbor, is because it's free. It teaches, this is I guess the second part of my question, if this even can be considered a question, but the reason I like teaching Metabang is it teaches some fundamentals of how to think about digital illustration in terms of a layer palette, having to pay attention to brush tools and the different functions of the brush tools that are different options that change when you switch between different tools in the application, how to think about saving a file in various formats. Like it's a very slimmed down, very elegant, simplified version of Photoshop or Manga Studio. So once they get that part, now you can go into Manga Studio where everything's nested and there's like 75 new ways to do things. But I like this idea of there's a free thing that works on virtually any platform. You can use it on a Windows tablet or a iPad or a phone for that matter. You can take your work anywhere you want to go, and you learn the basics of digital illustration through it. Is Twine similar that way to other game design engines?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, maybe a little more, more gentle and even a little less direct, right? Because there's, I mean, there's you can just the raw basics of passages plus links and having an easy way to edit and then export that and share it. That's incredibly powerful right there. But then it's not quite as game. It's more narrative, right? So it's almost like how far do you want to push the needle toward branching, toward feedback loops, to like maybe you have an inventory system or a health system or some kind of currency that is being spent as someone navigates a story, right? So all of a sudden you're adding these additional elements that become more and more gameful in their nature. That there is a ramp up, but it's kind of, I don't know. There's such a nice natural fit between like Metabang and then graduating to the other tools that I think it's a bit more ambiguous with Twine. Okay. But yet it is a gentle intro and it is free. And if you're up for digging through that ambiguity, I suppose, yeah, I mean, there are paths from.
So on that track of comparing, another thing I've noticed about Metabang that I lean on this point hard with my students is I get them in the habit of saving often, save all the time. And the story I always tell them is the old man story of uphill both ways, barefoot in the snow. As I say, like, my very first digitally colored computer was on a Packard Bell in 1999. And it had I think a 500 megabyte hard drive, something just absurdly out of date, even for that time, right? And it took so long to save a file that I just got tired of saving all the time. So I just kept working because I just needed to keep moving to the work. And it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, something like that. I had to be at work in like 3 hours. The page was due that morning, and blue screen of death happened. And I hadn't saved like the last 4.5 hours worth of work. And I tell them, like, this is the only time I've ever wept making comics. Don't weep over your comics. Save your file all the time. Now, also because Metabang is a little crashy. It crashes pretty regularly on the Macs that we use at the Art Center. So now I have to ask, you're talking about a web browser app. A, how does saving work? And B, do you even have to do that?
Yeah, okay. Let me share my screen real quick so we can give it a proper way of pointing it out. So if you're back in we last left my screen sharing. We're inside of the story map for Hunt the Wumpus. If I click the little home button, I'm back to my list of stories. I can export them all right away by clicking the archive link.
Okay.
And it saves them all. And I can re-import them either collectively or discretely by selecting one in the list. So archiving your stories collectively, super easy. Archiving them individually is also easy, where if you just click the little gear icon next to your story in the list, you can essentially publish it to a file.
Okay.
Or, duplicate and all that kind of stuff too. If you're like,
but this is like you have to sort of step out of the editing mode in order to do this.
Yeah, I believe so.
So what's happening while you're working? Like, what happens if this browser crashes while you're in the middle of editing this?
Let's see. I mean, you would lose your story. In that hypothetical situation, I haven't encountered it. It's not. I mean, because it's possible. Like, so if you're using some kind of using a website, I imagine at some point you have encountered the snap if you use Google Chrome, right?
Yeah.
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 How frequent is that nowadays?
Depends on the age of the machine I'm using, but yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess your mileage may vary, and that habit you mentioned is super duper valid. Like there is nothing built in that is, okay, hold on. If it crashes, so it would have to be a very severe crash for you to lose much work, if at all, think of it, because it is constantly saving the state within this web browser, right? So unless you've wiped your entire, so if you're using the web-based version, or I'm using the app-based version, which is essentially an isolated web browser. But if you're using your main web browser and then not exporting or whatever, and your web browser crashes, you probably would have lost maybe seconds to no work, right? Because anything you commit to is getting saved as you work in Twine. So then, would that be saved as a file? No, but it's in the local storage of the web browser.
Okay.
So it's kind of like how some apps nowadays are getting rid of the idea that you need to even manually save. You just work and the app is saving.
That's just unnatural.
So in the situation where you're explicitly saving, it's a lot like making a backup.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious how like working in a web browser differs in that way, because I know like when I think about Google Docs, it doesn't even occur to me to save in Google Docs, right? It's an assumption I make now.
Yep, there you go.
So it sounds like it's very similar.
Yeah, that's what it's like to use in as you're just working away, because you can not save anything, close the app, come back, and you've not lost any work. The only reason to save is to export and archive backups. Maybe you want to go back to a prior version, right? That's definitely a great reason to save occasionally. That's and then of course if you want to share your work, and of course really important, if you're on a web browser, you're on a shared computer, or you want to bring it to another machine. It's not stored in the cloud, so you need to go through that saving step in order to go anywhere with your story, to continue working on it.
I was gonna say, is there a character limit on a passage? It's like Troy is chiming in the chat, and I think this is an interesting idea. It looks like you could also use it to make a layout for a print choose your own adventure style comic book or comic. And I'm also thinking like prose, like a choose your own adventure book. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to use it that way. Have you run into any kind of like up against any walls in terms of size or content size within passages?
I haven't, because I mean, it's all pure text. And that's one of the I think that's one of the reasons why Twine probably, I'm guessing, right? I mean, why the creators of Twine didn't make it so you could store images and audio and video in Twine is that when you're only storing text, even in a limited storage situation, such as, well, a web browser's local storage, I forget how many megabytes it is by default, but it's megabytes of text. Megabytes of pure text is a lot of text. So yeah, I mean, you could have probably 5 Moby Dicks in there, and then that's not going to be a problem. That's my estimate.
It is long. How long? Like 5 Moby Dicks long. Holy moly. Okay. Well, I don't know. Is there anything else to cover on this? Anything that we didn't talk about?
Is there like I don't know. Is there anything that you might think would be a useful final thought that we could take a look at? I know we didn't really mention more about I mean, there's some really cool examples as far as there's a project called Cradle that lets you embed Twine stories in a Unity app, and that's pretty neat. And like, there's a neat example called an app called Snoozing. That's just fun. So I recommend downloading it to see like how it's just really creative. Their interpretation of this genre. What can be done?
Well, let me pull it up real quick. I mean, we could look at it on my browser.
Yeah, and it's not a browser. You have to actually download it as it's an install.
Oh,
so not a giant thing, but you have to download a zip file and run an app, right? So doable, but well, I mean, maybe
I see.
Maybe I should run it.
Okay.
Doodly do.
Yeah, it's not going to let me download it on my Chromebook.
Let's say so. Nope. It will not. Won't run on a Chromebook. And the app is called Snoozing. Oh, where'd that go?
Well, I'll tell you what.
There it is.
Okay, that'll be our final thought. Is we'll play with Snoozing a little bit to see like.
Boom.
There's our teaser. So for the final thought, we're actually going to play a little bit of like what an example of like what's one of the ultimate goals you can do with this kind of thing, and why you should come to participate in Rob's workshop at the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Festival, June 16th and 17th. But before we do that, we got to thank some other people who make this show possible. And those people happen to be us, Rob. We make this show possible. Let's talk about some stuff we make.
Sounds good.
We're only a few weeks away from the release of Science Comics Rockets, a graphic novel that I made with my wife, Ann. It's called, it's from First Second Books. It's in stores June 12th, 2018, and sciencecomicsrockets.com is the website where you'll actually see we've got tour dates starting to pop up on there. June 12th, we're going to be doing a book signing at Literati in Ann Arbor. June 20th, Book Bug in Kalamazoo. June 23rd, Vault of Midnight in Grand Rapids, and so on. It's at sciencecomicsrockets.com. What's the book about? It's Carl Sagan's Cosmos as told by the animals who participated in rocket history. So it's the history and science of rockets, where your hosts are actually animals like bears, tortoises, ducks, dogs, monkeys, quails. What else is in there? Spiders and rats. Rats were used in rocket history, and eventually leading us to robots like Curiosity rover and Viking, and even have some talking solar sails in there as well. I think it's one of the funniest books I've ever co-written, but it's also, you will learn about like the principles of rocketry and about Newton's laws of motion and how that relates to how rockets go, and the differences between solid fuel rockets and liquid fuel rockets, and interesting stories of the people who pioneered all these different things, like how the space race was saved by a woman named Mary Sherman Morgan, who saved the space race for the United States with chemistry. And you'll learn all about it by purchasing the book, sciencecomicsrockets.com. June 12th is an important date, not only because the book comes out, but because I'm going to be doing a giveaway on June 12th. And information about it will be at sciencecomicsrockets.com. So please do check that out. Rob, make a game.
I do. And that game is called This Panda Needs You. And, don't know if you realize that there's a panda out there waiting for your help. But yes, turns out that there's this whole bunch of puzzles, like over 50. And they start out easy and they get progressively a little more challenging. In this very mellow pattern matching block stacking game, where little pandas cruising through a bamboo forest, encounters a stack of blocks. Everything's fine. Oops, then there's a cloud comes along, shows up uninvited, knocks them all down. And now it's your job to help the panda put things back to the way they should be. The panda, there's a lot of little subtle fun in the game where the panda celebrates and kind of notices as you're progressing, getting closer to the final pattern, and just dancing. That's kind of awesome. Panda's dancing for you and playing delightful music. So anyway, you can learn more about it at this-panda.com, and it's available for iPhone, iPad, Android phones and tablets, and of course Mac and Windows desktops. Mac and Windows desktop, go to itch.io, search for This Panda Needs You, and then for your other platforms, of course, go to Google Play or iTunes, search for This Panda Needs You.
If you have purchased it, thank you, first of all. But after that, give it a review or tell a friend about it. That helps more people find the game as well. But let's say that you're here because you like the way we think about stuff rather than the stuff that we make. That's fine. This show is a thing that we make. And we have more self-contained things like that at leanintoart.com/workshops, where you can find self-contained video series by us making comics, making video games, UI. You download them at a price of your choosing, even free. You can download them for free. But if you get some value out of it, a really nice thing you could do is then purchase it, maybe buy it for a friend. Say, hey, I got something out of this. Maybe you'd like this too. Then you're helping us out, and you're helping a friend. You're doing double help. And you get to test drive the thing in the first place for free at leanintoart.com/workshops. If you're watching the video on YouTube, giving it a thumbs up right now helps more people find the show, because YouTube is a pretty important search engine. And if you're listening to it in a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts or whatever, you're giving us a Stitcher, giving the show a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to, it helps more people find the show as well. And we thank everybody who's been doing exactly those things. It means a lot to us.
It does. Thank you.
All right. Want to play a game?
I do. It's kind of like the beginning of war games, isn't it? That's a little troublesome.
Like to play a game.
Exactly. Global thermal nuclear warfare. Nope. In this case, I'm going to play a game called Snoozing. Way less risky than global thermal nuclear warfare. So I need to share my screen. Make that happen here. Back to that good old desktop sharing. So here we go. Snoozing, an interactive story. And so would you like to narrate as I play here?
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Rob hits play. Screen goes dark.
Can you hear this? Can you hear anything?
I can't. Oh, is there an alarm playing? Oh, so question mark. My alarm clock. Time to get up. And that's a link, so let's click it. Must leave at 7 o'clock. It slowly gets brighter. The end. Okay. Let's play it again, because I have a feeling I could have hit snooze on that phone that was on the screen. So I didn't describe the scene very well, but it's all dark. I see 3 dots, an ellipsis, question mark, my alarm clock. And now I see the phone, and the snooze button is pulsating on the phone screen. I click it. I can't handle this right now. That's the text of the screen. All black. Okay, what happens next? Oh, there's a red light sort of pulsating, and now it's purple, pulsating in the middle of the screen. Now it's orange. Is it interacting with you moving the mouse?
Yes, it is.
So when you go up in the upper right-hand corner, it turns a bright orange. But when you go down lower, it turns purple. Bottom of the screen turns purplish blue. So what happens if you click at the bottom of the screen? Everything just went black.
Everything did just go black. There's some subtle breathing. There's breathing sounds. Very subtle though. Not creepy.
Okay. Still black.
Subtle.
Oh. Something's like pulsating, like an image of a person's face is with the hair over one side of their face is slowly coming into focus. When will I feel you? Is the text next to it. Ellipsis. My alarm clock. Time to get up. I get a snooze again. I can't handle this right now. And now when we hover over the screen with the mouse, the light changes. Let's see what happens if we make it red. Does that take us someplace else? Oh, now the cursor has got like this chalky outline around it when you move it around the screen. What is that for? What's the sound that we're hearing? Or should we be hearing?
Whoa.
Whoa. Oh,
I'm
as Rob
clicking on
hovers
stuff.
over, Rob starts clicking the screen and all these chalk drawings of our vision, 100%. Pie charts, bar charts, 2 days until the meeting. 2 days. Everyone is going to hate me. Who needs this? Why? Me.
Alarm clock's going off again.
Alarm clock comes up again. Okay, so this is sort of like investigating somebody's headspace as they're laying in bed.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to solve it. I've not beaten this game. I have
But
the
like,
source
this is what I was
code-
talking
source
about.
code to it, but like, yeah.
This is what I was talking about when I was comparing it to Myst. Is like this kind of like embedding clues around the canvas and not giving you a clear idea of what is to be clicked and what isn't to be clicked.
And in this case, I mean, there's different behaviors. Like I did a sort of a mouse wiggling and a mouse exploring, and then mouse exploring with clicking. Like each of these interactions had different just different parts to it. So, and that becomes, that's like, I mean, so it's turning a Twine narrative, branching narrative into something that becomes more interactive through Unity. Right. So you could start to provide those similar features by sticking with in the web ecosystem of web tech, right? But then Unity, if you essentially say, I'm going to use Twine to structure my story, but then I'm going to use Unity to package and distribute it, then now you're like, you have the ability to reach way more. You have the ability to reach more. Big trade-offs, right? Okay, the web, super reachable, what have you, wide audience, but then harder to probably monetize what you created. But then, with Unity, you can package it and put it into different app stores and places that it's a little more natural to monetize.
Okay. Well, cool, Rob. I think we did an overview. I think we did a podcast.
That was fun. Thanks for exploring that bit of work in progress with me.
How should, if anybody wants to give you any feedback on what they saw today as you're putting together the final touches in your workshop, where should they reach out to you?
Let's see. I think the tweets are fine, right? I mean, so I'm on Twitter, but then also if you have a lot to share, then maybe email, where I think the easiest place to reach me there is rob.stenzinger@stenzingersoftware.com.
Okay. So any feedback that you guys have on what we did today, things that you're still wondering about, things that you wish you could have gotten a little bit more elaboration on, that would be really good feedback. Because then who knows, this could become packaged up into a workshop at leanintoart.com/workshops. You never know.
You never know.
All right. Well, thanks, Rob. This was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jerzy.
I'm excited for the kids who get to take your workshop at A2CAF. So we'll be back. We do this show every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central, and we stream it live on YouTube, and then it's archived as a podcast at patreon.com/leanintoart. More social media stuff, links and things mentioned in just a second. Until next time, I've been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jerzy Drozd on Instagram.
And I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com and Rob Stenzinger on Instagram.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.
Okay, I'm going to shut off the stream. Thanks for hanging out, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.